Samuel 2, Part 2. David defeats Ammon and Syria. After this, the king of the Ammonites died, and Hanun, his son, reigned in his place. And David said, I will deal loyally with Hanun. So David, by his servants, to console him concerning his father. But the priests of the Ammonites said to Hanun, their lord, Has not David sent his servants to you to search the city and to spy it out and to overthrow it? So Hanan took David's servants and shaved off half the beard of each and cut off their garments in the middle at their hips and sent them away. When the Ammonites saw that they had become a stench to David, the Ammonites sent and hired the Syrians. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men. And when all the kings who were servants of Hadadezer saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel and became subject to them. So the Syrians were afraid to save the Ammonites anymore. David and Bathsheba. It happened late one afternoon when David arose from his couch and was walking on the roof, a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful. And David sent and inquired about the woman. And one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? So David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. And the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, I am pregnant. In the morning David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter he wrote, Send Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die. And as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew there were valiant men. Uriah the Hittite also died. When the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she lamented over her husband. And when the mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. Nathan rebukes David. And the Lord sent Nathan to David. He came to him and said to him, There were two men in a certain city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had very many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing but one little ewe lamb, which he had bought. And when he bought it and grew it up with him and with his children, it used to eat at his morsel, and drink from his cup, and lie in his arms, and it was like a daughter to him. Now there came a traveler to the rich man, and he was unwilling to take one of his own flock or herd to prepare for the guest who had come to him, but he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. Then David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, As the Lord lives, the man who has done this deserves to die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. Nathan said to David, You are the man. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you out of the hand of Saul, and I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your arms, and gave you the house of Israel and of Judah. And if this was too little, I would add to you as much more. Why have you despised the word of the Lord to do what is evil in his sight? You have struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now, therefore, the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes, and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of this sun. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, The Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die. Nevertheless, because by this deed you have utterly scorned the Lord, the child who is born to you shall die. And then Nathan went to his house. David's child dies. But when David saw that his servants were whispering together, David understood that the child was dead. Solomon's birth. Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba, and he went into her and lay with her, and she bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. Rabbah is captured. Now Joab fought against Rabbah and the Ammonites and took the royal city. So David gathered all the people together and went to Rabbah and fought against it and took it. Ammon and Tamar. Now Absalom, David's son, had a beautiful sister, whose name was Tamar. And after a time, Ammon, David's son, loved her. And Ammon was so tormented that he made himself ill because of his sister Tamar. But Ammon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother. And Jonadab was a very crafty man, and he said to him, O son of the king, why are you so haggard this morning after morning? Will you not tell me? Ammon said to him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Jonadab said to him, lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill. And when the king came to see him, Ammon said to the king, please let my sister Tamar come and make me a couple of cakes in my sight that I may eat from her hand. But when she brought them near to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, come, lie with me, my sister. She answered him, no, my brother, do not violate, for such a thing is not done in Israel. And Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the long robe that she wore, and she laid her hand on her head and went away, crying aloud as she went. When King David heard all these things, he was very angry. But Absalom spoke to Ammon neither good nor bad, for Absalom hated Ammon because he had violated his sister Tamar. Absalom murders Amnon. After 2 full years, Absalom had sheep shears at Baal Hazor, which is near Ephraim. And Absalom invited all the king's sons. And Absalom came to the king and said, please let the king and his servants go with your servant. But the king said to Absalom, no, my son, let us not all go, lest we be a burdensome to you. But Absalom pressed him until he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. Then Absalom commanded his servants, mark when Ammon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, strike Ammon, then kill him. For by the command of Absalom, this has been determined from the day he violated his sister Tamar. Ammon alone is dead. Absalom flees to Geshur. But Absalom fled. And Jonadab said to the king, behold, the king's son has come, as your servant said, so it has come about. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. And David mourned for his son day after day. So Absalom fled and was there 3 years. And the spirit of the king longed to go out to Absalom, because he was comforted by Ammon since he was dead. Okay, Absalom returns to Jerusalem. Now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, knew that the king's heart went out to Absalom. So Joab sent to Tekoa and brought from there a wise woman and said to her, pretend to be a mourner and put on mourner's garments. So the king, go to the king and speak to him thus to him. So Joab put the words in her mouth. And the king said to her, what is your trouble? She answered, I am a widow. My husband is dead, and your servant had 2 sons. One struck the other and killed him. And now the whole clan has risen against your servant, and they say, give up the man who struck his brother. Thus they would quench my coal that is left, and leave to my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth. Then she said, please let the king invoke the Lord your God, that the avenger of blood kill no more, and my son not be destroyed. He said, as the Lord lives, not one hair of your son shall fall to the ground. And the woman said, for in giving this decision the king convicts himself, inasmuch as the king does not bring his banished one home again. The king said, is the hand of Joab with you in all this? The woman answered and said, it was your servant Joab who commanded me. It was he who put all these words in my mouth of your servant. Then the king said to Joab, behold, now I grant this. Go, bring back the young man Absalom. So Joab rose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. So Absalom lived apart in his own house and did not come into the king's presence. Now in all Israel there was no one so much to be praised for his handsome appearance as Absalom. So Absalom lived 2 full years in Jerusalem without coming into the king's presence. Then Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but Joab would not come to him. And he sent a second time, but Joab would not come. Then he said to his servants, Joab's field, set it on fire. Why have your servants set my field on fire? Absalom answered Joab, Why have I come from Geshur? Let me go into the presence of the king. So he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom.